Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our session. We'll let some other folks kind of just trickle in as well, but we'll go and just take advantage of our time and get started. Real briefly, my name is Daniel Canning. I'm a product marketing manager for Office 365, and a little bit of a unique role in that I don't own marketing for a specific product within Office or a specific service, but trying to build programs for our customers, devs like yourselves, whether you are in an enterprise or in a partner, with a partner to build solutions that can enable the adoption and solving specific business needs with Office. And so that goes across the full spectrum of APIs we have for Office 365, whether it's involving Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, the core Office apps, of course Microsoft Graph, all of those different components. And then even within that, I have a focus on trying to work with our customers and partners to build industry-specific solutions for Office, which maybe is a little bit unique because you don't maybe always think about how Office can solve industry-specific needs. You know, it's maybe traditionally thought about as a horizontal tool set and platform, what it is. So, and that kind of goes to the core of my message today, and then we'll have some great demos talking about some industry-specific scenarios around Office. As you've seen throughout the keynotes and throughout other messages today, Office 365 has a lot of momentum. It's on most people's roadmaps from an enterprise IT perspective, and you're maybe partially there, you're in a hybrid environment, but you're moving there. And of course, we're doing a lot of new investments in Office 365 around new collaborative canvases and new things that we're surfacing for our end users and investments. And it's also, Office is a developer platform. If you've gone to any of our other Office developer sessions, whether you're talking about SharePoint framework, connectors for Outlook and Teams, the Microsoft Graph, Office add-ins, it is a platform for developers, and not just maybe traditionally how you've thought of doing Office extensibility. Maybe you've built some VBA or COM VSTO add-ins in the past, but Office with its online services is a way that you can actually integrate your line of business applications, your industry-specific SaaS applications can be embedded directly within Office and take advantage of the collaborative platform of Office to solve industry-specific needs. And that's my last point, is that industry require specific solutions. You have your own line of business solutions to actually do the work in that specific industry. Whether maybe you're in healthcare and you have an EHR as the core system of record. Maybe you're in manufacturing and you have a product lifecycle management tool, or you're in legal, you have a DMS or maybe an ERP system, maybe some types of manufacturing. But you have these line of business applications, but we believe that there's actually new opportunities that are created because at the intersection of these industry-specific applications and the investments that we're making in Office 365 and these new collaborative canvases, there's actually new opportunities to service your customers in your internal organizations, or if you're a partner, to also service your customers. So a little bit on the Office 365 platform. This is a slide that we've had in a few different sessions. But these are the different canvases that we think about for Office 365. Traditional Word or Excel, PowerPoint integration, and as I mentioned today, we can do that with web technologies and web dev technologies to do integrations directly into documents. Also then conversations. We have, whether it's conversations in Teams, conversations in Outlook, we have a way to actually integrate directly into those conversations through things called connectors. And we're going to look at some industry-specific examples in this session today, some great demos from a partner who's building these connectors in a healthcare scenario directly in the Teams, letting Teams, or it could be Outlook, be that conversational canvas back to your line of business or your SaaS application. And then pages. Of course, there's always been extensibility in SharePoint, and there's now a new model for SharePoint framework. And then maybe a one that you don't always think about, which is actually standalone apps, or a way to actually have Office be a canvas where you have your own application and you're utilizing parts of Office. Maybe it's the Graph APIs, maybe it's Excel REST APIs that you can use to actually embed within your own application, having it saved back, but taking advantage of that Word functionality or Office functionality. And underlying all of this is Microsoft Graph. How many people are pretty familiar now, either through this week or maybe previously, with Microsoft Graph? Just from a show of hands, is that a concept that we're pretty familiar with through this week? So Microsoft Graph, think of it not only as a single endpoint, right? That's the kind of front door to thinking about Microsoft Graph, is that we have all these different APIs that have built up over time across SharePoint, across the core Office apps, across OneDrive and all our other Office entities. And yes, Office Graph is a way to build a single endpoint for those, but beyond being a single endpoint, it's also a way where we can expose investments that we're making in both machine learning and AI, intelligence and insight, against everything that happens across Office 365, right? So if you're building a custom app and you're going to assign an approval to somebody, you can look up and see, is that person in the office or out of the office, using the Microsoft Graph. If they're out of the office, you can see who their manager is and actually assign it to their manager. And so you can take advantage of insight. Maybe you want to see a piece of content that's trending, that has a lot of views, that's being shared, and surface that through an app. We can have smart pickers, smart calendars. A lot of things you can do in building your own custom line of business apps. You can take advantage of Microsoft Graph to do that. And we're going to continue to invest in a Microsoft Graph as not only a centralized endpoint for everything across Office 365, but as a layer of intelligence and insight across everything that happens in Office 365, really capturing the digital exhaust, if you will, of everybody's day-to-day activities across the platform. So how does this all relate to industry-specific scenarios? We talked a little bit at the start that there's this opportunity at the intersection of Office 365 being ubiquitous, us having more and more scenarios out there for collaboration and productivity, and the fact that it's an open developer platform. So at the bottom of this diagram, we show that, built by Microsoft. Of course, we recognize that Office is a horizontal platform. We have tools to extend it, and that's what we've talked about. But in the end, we're not suggesting that you're going to take a core, maybe Office service, and go build an EHR in healthcare, or that you're going to build a big, robust ERP system, or a specific line of business app for something distinct in manufacturing. But many times you're going to have your own apps that are doing that. And it's really up to partners or yourselves as an enterprise developer putting those together. But as you move up the stack in Office, there are some things we have that are a little more configurable that you can start to squint and maybe think of these being industry solutions, whether it's some things we do with records or compliance centers and those types of things. But I want to point out to you the next layer up there, which is some work that we're doing around building solution accelerators or templates that maybe give you a vision of how Office can be stapled together across all of our different services, and then including things like Azure, including things like integration with your line of business applications, to then deliver really new collaboration scenarios that maybe it's not easy for you to see, oh, I didn't know I could do that with Office. And that's what we hope to demo today, some of those. But we'll continue to do investments in industry-specific solution accelerators and industry-specific examples to show you how you can take advantage of the power of Office 365 within your organization or with customers. And that's where we see these new opportunities, right? As I mentioned at the top level there, we're not going to go build a specific Office SKU that's doing a banking app as part of Office 365, or maybe an e-government app, or those things on the top line. We really look for our customers and partners to build those out. But we want to be able to show you how, with the power of the development platform and the power of what we're investing in, that there's new opportunities for you out there. So what are some of those opportunities? Within Microsoft, we've done a lot of work and focusing of how we're positioning, how we're approaching customers. And really making sure we're consolidating that across some core industries. So I'm showing you just a few of the core industries that we focus on from a Microsoft perspective right now, from government, health, financial services, manufacturing, retail. And then we've gone out there and looked and said, okay, so if these are the industries that we are focusing on as a company, where are the places that Office has a great place to make an impact that maybe isn't always completely visible or something that you think of right away? And so we've actually done not only homework with our own industries team. We have an industries team within Microsoft who specializes in these different industries, and myself and colleagues within Office have gone out and interviewed these experts and talked about where are the places that Office 365 has a great place to play. And we've also gone out there and done some external investment, and we've worked with Gartner to put together some reports to talk about, hey, within both knowledge workers, which is traditional Office workers, but also within frontline workers, where are there some places that are brand new opportunities to solve problems using Office 365? And so we highlight here a few of the different spaces, and I know that if you're kind of running enterprise dev, maybe the size of addressable market isn't that important to you, but it does show the space that exists within some of these specific industries, like where we maybe haven't always been addressing solutions using Office. Maybe it's a retail first-line worker, or maybe it's a healthcare frontline worker, or a government frontline worker, where today maybe the Office hasn't been looked at as a way to solve their day-to-day work. We think we can, and we've even looked at, here are some scenarios underneath what's in these industries that are priority ones, that not only our industry experts tell us that these are great fit for Office building solutions, but also this has also come from Gartner, their outside research we've done. And I have a link there to a report. So we have a nice, actually, PDF report available of their insight into places where Office 365 can make an impact in these different industries. So I'd encourage you to go grab that report, take a look at it, consume it. It goes through a lot of content that we've put together on these different scenarios. And so the ones that I have highlighted here are the ones that we're going to jump in today and spend some time demoing and showing you what we're building in these areas. You know, there's one that's in orange, which is a virtual healthcare templates we actually released earlier this year. Once again, these are not scenarios that we're going to go build a SKU around. These aren't going to be a product. And so even when I'm showing you these code examples we're doing, these solution accelerators, these are things we want to be open, right? We want to share these with our customers, share these with our partners. We'll open source these as a way that you can pick it up and run with it within your organization, or if you're a partner supporting customers. So let's jump into some demos and show you some of the things that we're working on. So the first one I'm actually going to show you is something called the smart linking. I'm not sure did anyone attend Tristan and Rob's session where they demoed this earlier in the week? Did anyone see this demo already around the smart linking? If not, I'm actually going to make sure you guys can see this. Sorry, just one second. Does everyone have that? So SmartLink is something that we actually built with our finance department within Microsoft. So maybe somewhat of a surprise, but even within the operational side of Microsoft, everything isn't always 100% automated yet. We still have a lot of the same issues that a lot of you would have even within your customer base, whether that's internal or external. And in filing our Ks and Qs, so our actual financial reporting every month that would go to Amy Hood and Satya, there was a lot of manual copying and pasting going back and forth as they took data out of multiple spreadsheets that were connected to cubes in SAP, and were putting these in the documents. Now, document construction's been around for a while, right, where you could use maybe some VBA code, some COM/BSEO to put these together. But we wanted to look at how we could help them through an Azure-based modern web-based add-in solution to actually link together multiple spreadsheets into Word documents that are actually what we use to do our publishing of our financial statements. And because this is our financial statements, when they were doing copying and pasting out of maybe an Excel file into Word, it was something that they were actually having to pay an auditor to go check to make sure someone didn't paste it into the wrong section. And so by working on this project, they figure it's saving them about $400,000 a year in cost just to produce our Ks and Qs every quarter. So let me just try to show you a quick little demo of how this works. So I'm going to show you, this is in Word really quick, and this is actually, this is of course all public. I'm not showing you unreleased materials here, but this is our quarterly earnings statement from just earlier this year. And you can see what I have here. I'm going to put the highlights on this really quick. So this in the right-hand pane is a modern add-in. So this has no code on the desktop, right? This is a web app that's running in Azure, but because the way I have it deployed, it can interact directly with the rich client of Word, and because of it's a modern add-in, right? This same add-in will run in Word Online. It'll run Word on Mac, and I don't have to deploy any different code for any of those clients. And you can see what I have highlighted here are some destination points, and you think, oh, that's kind of interesting. But let me show you kind of where this is coming from. So back here in Excel, I have, I'm showing our GAAP revenue at 700 million. I'm going to just make an update here, and let's say this session is such a success, right? You guys are just sitting here. Just buying stock as we sit here buying new Office 365 licenses. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh that. And you can see now that there's a document value, and then there's the published value, which is what's actually up in the cloud. And I go, yeah, that looks right. That's what we want. A bunch of people work on this different data together. We're going to go and publish this up. Oops, sorry, let me select. We're going to go ahead and publish this up to the cloud. And now you can see in our cloud source, we have the same value that we have here in the document, or in the spreadsheet. Now I'm going to head back over to our actually financial statement. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. You can see what we had over there in GAAP was 700, which is what we previously had, right? And now I'm going to refresh this, and now that's at that 900, right? So that's refreshed automatically. That's all coming from a cloud source. And I can publish these endpoints to a dozen documents, right? So I could have a dozen documents that are all using that same endpoint. And you go, oh, maybe that's kind of interesting. But as it turns out, what ends up happening when people are actually creating these, our financials for every month or every quarter, they actually end up working out of multiple spreadsheets. So what if you have people actually in multiple spreadsheets working on data that you want to publish to that same document? So I've actually opened up a separate spreadsheet here, once again sitting just in a SharePoint side in Office 365, and I'm going to create a new endpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new endpoint here. I'm going to grab the name from that cell. I'm going to grab the value from this cell, and this is just, because this is Excel, I could grab a whole range of data, but I'm just going to grab that one right there, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this. We're going to go and call this in the operating income bucket. I'm going to save this. That now exists in the cloud. So now I'm going to go back over to our financial statement, and let's say we're going to drop that right here, and I'm going to go add that endpoint. So this app, once again using the power of the Microsoft Graph, actually can see what are the recent files that I've used. So I can go ahead and grab this, and then not only can it grab the recent files I can use, it's actually looking at what is inside what's inside of that data up in the cloud. I can grab that value. Next. And then we've pulled, you see right here, we've even pulled over core. Remember I was talking about Office as an embedded canvas. We've pulled over core Excel functionality using the Excel REST APIs, and we have the ability to actually do some common functions from Excel, changing the decimal places. And then we've added some little other customizations here where you can do have that data come across in hundreds and thousands, etc. And I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead and add this over. And you can see now that value is showing up there, and I can highlight that, and you can see that now value is coming over there. So look at, now in the app, I'm showing that I have a document here that's reading cloud data from more than one spreadsheet. You can see the first spreadsheet here, the second spreadsheet here. I can go ahead and open this up and take a look at the history of who's updated it, when they've updated it. And that's all through showing an example of combining the power of Microsoft Graph, an Azure app, and Office 365 all coming together. And so this is an app that we'll open source this. So exactly as everything you see here, what we're using for our actual finance department to do work, I'll show at the end. I'll give you a link, and in the next week or so, I'm kind of going through dotting some T's, crossing some I's with our legal folks. But I'll give you all of this code that we do this, right? Because once again, we're not trying to build something here that's going to be askew, but we want to show you how we can light up industry-specific scenarios with the power of Office 365. I'm going to actually jump into my next demo real quick, which is also something that addresses a little bit of a first-line worker scenario. This is a project that we knocked out as part of a hackathon that we do at Microsoft during our 1 week a year. We get some time where we can go work on projects that maybe we think are interesting. And this is just something we knocked out in about 72 hours. So it's not super baked, but I want to show you the concept of thinking about a first-line worker. Let's say that I work let's say I work for a maintenance company, and I have a contract with a lot of the major hotels in the area to go service their appliances if they have issues. And a call's come in, and I need to go take a look at a refrigerator and a unit at a local hotel, right? So I snapped this picture last night using the app of this beautiful kitchenette in this luxury hotel, right, that I'm in. And you can see it's just an image that I have rendered within this app. The other thing to recognize, of course, with first-line worker scenarios is, images are core to how they get work done. First-line workers are creating multiple times more images to get their work done than they do actual documents. And so that's kind of the spirit of what we wanted to put together was, hey, how can we have an image be the central point of a collaboration, but use Office 365 to also kind of show how to get some work done. So let me just show you a quick example of how this works. So I'm going to go ahead and just highlight that picture there, and then I'm going to put my mouse over it. And so this is using our cognitive services, right? And it recognizes what that is. So so what I'm pulling together is a Windows app. I'm using our cognitive services to actually recognize what's in this image. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this right here and put my cursor over it. And it recognizes that it's a stainless steel refrigerator in a kitchen. That's pretty cool. You wrote an app in a couple of days that can use cognitive services, but what can you do with that? And so that's where we think about how can we have this be example of collaboration, right? So I click on that image, and you see it brings it in focus. That's why we named the project like that. And let's say I want to go ahead and I want to create a task for it. So this is a refrigerator in a hotel room, and it looks like maybe it has a banged up door. So you need to go ahead and you need to go service this unit. I'm going to go ahead and assign it off to a resource. This is all using Graph because I'm actually using a group in Planner. So I'm actually grabbing these names dynamically, and I'm going to go ahead and add it to something needs to be to do. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. So now I can go ahead and pop over to this planner board. So this is an Office 365, and that task I created for someone to go service that unit is now dynamically showing up over here in Planner for someone to go take a service of it. And just to show you kind of the power of how this is all linked together from using Office 365, maybe my contract is all local hotels, and there's a lot of banged up refrigerators from Ignite. Maybe people are having long nights running to the refrigerators. We don't know, right? So this is going to create an Ignite 2017 bucket over here for these issues. You can see I have the team members over here. This is all this using groups, and I can hop back to my back to the project, and I'm going to go ahead and just once again I'm going to just grab this image. And so going to recognize what it is. And when I go to create a task now, you can see the group. Now there's Ignite 2017 there. So that's showing the power of Microsoft Graph, creating a frontline worker scenario. And then all the other experiences of Office 365, you can quickly have on there, whether it's the ability you want to send this to someone in mail, where you want to have a chat, right? And we're dynamically pulling in that group, and I can have a chat with the resources. So it's a little bit of a novelty, kind of an app, but what it's showing you is that with Office 365, with the power of the graph, you can create line of business applications where you're actually servicing like a first line worker scenario that maybe you didn't think in the past was something you could do with Office. So the next thing that we're going to actually jump into from a demo perspective is getting really specific with an industry solution. Project Focus was the one I just showed you. Is talking, as you saw, one of the industries that we have a heavy focus on is in healthcare. And one of the core scenarios in healthcare is both care team collaboration and care team coordination. And as we mentioned, we're doing a lot of new investment in tools that can be used as mobile collaboration tools, whether that's Teams, whether that's Staff Hub, even SharePoint with its mobile apps. And we want to show the power of that you can integrate things like Teams dynamically or Outlook dynamically back to line of business applications in a really specific healthcare scenario. So I'm going to invite Mark up from Datica, who's going to show some work that he's been able to do really in a very short period of time that shows how you can pull all of these together. Thank you, Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you see that up on the screen? Yeah, we're great. Great. My name is Mark Olszewski, and I work for a company called Datica. We provide a platform to let developers in healthcare working with patient data better facilitate compliance, building apps on public clouds like Azure, and data integration with health systems. If you're not aware, starting in 2009, the government, through the ARRA Act, was signed into practice for part of the Recovery Act, mandated that all providers seeing patients on Medicare and Medicaid had to begin using electronic health records, which began being implemented in 2011. Now, by 2017, over 90% of physicians and their employees now use electronic health records in their daily tasks. So while you, as developers working on the Office ecosystem, may have helped administrators working on tasks in Excel or on SharePoint, I'd like to show you a demo today that I built on how you can perform care team coordination using Microsoft Teams. And there's 4 parts to this demo. First, I'll show you Teams. Second, I'll be doing a bit of work with a health data standard called HL7. Third, I'm going to show you an open source piece of technology called Mirth Connect, where I built all of our transformation layer from health data to Teams. And finally, I'm going to show you an electronic health record here, which is an EHR called Allscripts. So here, if I hop back into Teams, I created a few channels for various things that I might use to track specific patients, specific demographics of patients. So you can see here that I have a Teams channel to discuss patients that we take care of that have diabetes. And I also have a generic channel here to discuss general tasks and patients within my family practice. So as a nurse or as a doctor, I might ask questions about specific patients or specific lab results. For example, this patient, Nancy Wilson, has an albumin that's a bit too low today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger admitting a patient to the hospital. Now, when a patient is admitted to the hospital, let me blow this up a bit here, the data which is sent across the wire is an HL7 ADT message, this pipe delimited format. And if it looks a bit funky to you, it's literally pre-internet. This data standard was invented in 1989, before Berners-Lee was working on the internet at CERN. And we still use this today to communicate most health data between systems. And it's a bit like staring into the matrix. But you can see that you have the PID segment here, and this tells us the patient's name, James Baldwin. And you can see information about the patient's care team through the role segment, so in the good hands of Mickey Mouse here in Orlando. Insurance information, demographics, pretty much everything you need to know to take care of a patient in the hospital. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to send it through our Datica platform, and we're going to do a transform. And when I go back to Teams, we can see that it created a card in the system. And the cards aren't specific to Teams. You can use cards in Outlook as well. But it lets us know that one of our patients was just admitted to the hospital, and lets us know that we should tell the primary care provider It tells us the patient's name, their medical record number, where they're located at the hospital, who they're assigned to in the system, if there's any due date in which the patient needs to review their information. So here, we have it now, but you could set a due date for when you want it to be done. And then within that card, through the engine, we can define tasks. So I could do a few different actions, like I could get the patient summary, so I could get information like medications, allergies, the patient's medical history. Now some patients have portals in the hospitals where they have tablets and family members or care team members can message them, so I could send a message directly to James here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a task in the EHR for the primary care provider. So the PCP for this patient is a doctor named Dr. James Medicine. And I'm going to write a note to him saying, "Hi, Dr. Medicine, hospital. And when I send this, it goes out from Teams and it goes back through our Datica engine. And whenever it writes into our system, we'll get an acknowledgement here that our task has been filed into Allscripts. Now, when I go back into my EHR, and this is Allscripts TouchWorks, as I mentioned, this is the third most common EHR used in the United States of America. When I refresh my record, I can see that I got that note that was signed in Teams, and I can see the information filed here into the system. So it covers us from a legal standpoint, it covers us from a compliance standpoint, and it means that clinicians don't even necessarily be working in some teams. Some people could be working in Microsoft Teams, some people could be working in the electronic health records where they live. If you're curious how we did this, so this is Mirth Connect, which is a tool, and I realize the font might be small where you're at. But Mirth Connect is an open source tool that allows you to transform health data into other information. So if I dig into the way that we took that HL780T message and transformed it, we set up our port to expose it. Here you have a data mapping layer that can take the HL7 message, and we took the body of this, and this is a card, if you've developed on this in the past, that you can pull data from the message. So we pulled the patient's first name from PID.5.2, the medical record number from PID.3. And we created this, and you can also create those actions within the card itself. I have to hand it to the people who built this API. This was really easy to do. It took me only about an hour to build, starting from scratch, never having built anything on Teams before. Again, there's a lot of nuances to working in healthcare, who should see what data, whatever else it might be, but this is a great place to be started. I open sourced all of this, so if you're curious, you can see it on GitHub, and Dan included it in a slide deck. But if you have any questions about building applications in healthcare or doing it on top of Teams and integrating, let me know after the talk. I'd be happy to chat with you about working in healthcare. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. That's great. And you know, I love the fact that Mark we had some conversations a couple of weeks ago, talked about their data integration layer that exists within healthcare, and literally within an afternoon or so, he knocked out actually what was that card you can see where you're actually, the user is in Teams, you know, taking advantage of that collaboration there, but all of the data is being stored back to that source system in the EHR. And you can think about, well, maybe you're not in healthcare, maybe in manufacturing, though, you have an ERP system, or maybe in manufacturing, maybe you have a product lifecycle management tool, but you can do that same scenario with your other core line of business apps, writing back to those as a system of record, but still taking advantage of what we have to offer as far as collaboration platform. And there's, you know, there's some other scenarios that we're doing similar to that in healthcare, which I think are also ones that, you know, you can probably think about how they apply to other industries. And one of those is, as I mentioned, we work with customers as well, seeing how they can start to envision these scenarios to help their business. Maybe they already have Office 365 and they're looking for new scenarios to even drive adoption even more of investments you've already made. And that's one of the value props that we have for these accelerators we build is many times you may already own these Office 365 licenses, or your customers do, and they don't really realize some of the value they can get out of them by driving adoption through these industry-specific scenarios. So in one healthcare customer that we're working with, they have a lot of initiatives to drive quality of care through lean, kind of Scrum-like lean processes, where they actually hold huddles every day within the subsections of their healthcare network. They actually hold 1,300 different huddles a week, where you get together as a department. Let's say that we're in a radiology department in Seattle, Washington, and we know that our quality of care metrics are a little out of whack, and so we want to get together and figure out how we can drive those into compliance. And so we're just doing some work with them to show them how they could do that in teams. They actually run all these huddles today. They have a lean lead that helps them kind of organize themselves, and these are the care team in each section of this network, and they're doing this all on paper today. They come up with what metrics they want to track on a whiteboard. They come up with the ideas they want to implement on paper. And if they implement a great idea that actually drives their quality of care, it just goes in a notebook. And then no one maybe in another side of the state who's in the same network that's in the same job doesn't know that this is an idea that helps drive quality. And the quality of care, in the end, all drives cost, which everyone wants to be able to kind of keep in check in healthcare. And so this is an example we're working on with them where we're building out their dashboards in Power BI. So instead of walking into a room with a whiteboard, we're actually working on them with touchscreens and Surface Hub so they can see their quality of care metrics, track them on a daily basis. And then once they know that they have issues that they're trying to solve, you can see here, I just put some sample issues in here they're trying to solve. The next idea is they want to come up with ideas for how they can drive those. And as I mentioned today, it's just done on paper, but we're experimenting with a couple different ways with them. One is through Power Apps, where we can have a mobile scenario where they can sit there and enter this data on a form. And another one is just being more chat-based, which within a Teams construct can be easily done in a bot. And the idea here was we have these healthcare professionals that are just on a mobile device, and they want to be able to quickly get an idea that they have in their head that they can drive some better performance. And so some pretty simple integration, but we just kind of said, hey, I have an idea. And then so, okay, great, so what's your idea? And say maybe I want to lower infection rates on our floor, let's say. And so okay, well, that's a great idea, but what's going to be the step you measure? What they do inside these lean processes is they come up with their idea, and then they track how often they want to measure that over the week. And so day by day, they actually track and measure their success to see if that actually has an impact on their numbers. And so maybe for this one, we're going to increase the use of whatever hydrogen peroxide by, I don't know, let's say 10% a day, something like that. So you put in the idea for what they're going to do and try and track that, and then you're able to categorize it. Maybe that has to do with satisfaction, but these could be any other metric they do. Who's going to own this? I'm going to say that I'll own it. And then, great. And then when do you want to have this done by? Let's say this is something we want to have done by the 5th. Oops, sorry. Of October. Great, this is all your data. You want to create this? Yeah, go ahead and create this idea. And so then it's been saved to Planner. So once again, kind of back on the Teams, I can now go to my idea board, and everyone, just as they're walking around doing their work during the day, is submitting these ideas to the bot, and those are dropping in this new idea card. So when they actually sit down in their Scrum meeting, everyone who's been walking around, once again, they don't have a desktop that they sit at during the day. They bear to put their ideas in. Oh, hey, we want to reduce infection rates. We're going to go ahead and put this idea into progress. and then start to measure that, and then say, okay, actually, this is making good progress. This is now our new process. And like I said, they're all running this today now on a touchscreen versus doing this on whiteboards. And then kind of the key thing that they end up doing is if this ended up driving their metrics, right? So if they go to their dashboard and they're able to track during this week that their the quality of care has gone up or infections have gone down in this case, they can take that idea board, they can take that idea and actually move it over to an impactful idea. And when you move something over to an impactful idea, sorry, that's not rendering, 1 second. I'll just let that come up. When you move it over to an impactful idea, what we're actually creating in the background is we have a job that will take the impactful idea and push that all the way out to another team at a top level across the network. So whereas today, right now, an impactful idea just lived within this team, we're actually taking those and publishing it to another team, which is a network-wide one, so they can start to see all the impactful ideas. Now, this is where this starts to get interesting, right? So now you've taken automating a process improvement, put it into this automated board, and now I have all that data in the graph. So I can now start to do intelligence on top of, okay, once metrics are at askew, maybe I can actually preemptively tell a practitioner what are some of the ideas that have been done in the same department across a network that have changed this behavior and improved quality. Or maybe I can, when someone's submitting a new idea, I can tell them other ideas that have already been submitted that are like that. Do you want to try this? This has been tried somewhere else. And then I can also start to give analysis across everything that's inside those idea cards to management to start to say, hey, here's some trends we're seeing. Here's the type of issues that are being submitted. So we've gone to truly from something that is successful being paper-based, and yes, they're running their Scrum process and these daily huddles, but to a way we can actually drive true digital transformation. And this is with something they already own, right? They already own these Office 365 licenses, and with a little coupling together that we do with the Office extensibility, with the graph, and some Azure functions, they're able to have a lot more value payoff for what they're paying for in Office 365. And that's what we really see as the core message behind a lot of these scenarios that we're driving and what we can do here. And so, what do we see to do next with these? Here's a way to get started. Here's some links for you just off some of the stuff I showed today. You can actually, the dynamic linking we had for finance, there's a link here. This is just, like I said, going through some final legal approval, but you can take that in the next week or so. We're going to open source that whole solution. The EHR connector that Mark showed earlier, which is a great example of care team coordination. Here's actually his link for his repo. That's open for you to use. We have virtual healthcare templates that we released earlier this year, and then that team huddle scenario I showed you later before the end of the year. We'll also open source that, and we'll let you guys get out there, whether it's within your organization or with your customers, take advantage of that. If you're a partner, there's also tools that we're putting together that can also be used for yourself in an internal organization. We're putting together, for these accelerators we're going to give you development guides. So it shows you kind of what is the IP that we've open sourced, how you can implement it, how you can use it, as well as pitch decks. So maybe if you're a partner, something you can use to actually help build and take this to market, but that same pitch deck you can use internally to take and maybe sell this type of a project internally with the code that we provide. From the partner side of things, there will also be other things you can take advantage of. We're going to run webcasts around industry solutions, and for solutions that meet certain criteria, we'll actually get those in front of our field as part of the solutions that they sell for Office 365. So there's a lot of great things to take advantage of there, also for partners, and we're excited to build those around these scenarios. So with that, what's more to learn? Please take advantage of these solution accelerators we're putting together, and then tell us about your own solutions. We'd love to hear from you about what solutions that you're building that are industry specific using Office 365. And we'd love to tell those stories. We love to include those in our materials, and happy to help evangelize those as well. I just want to let you know as well, we have developer boot camps coming up where you can learn to build these type of integration, whether it's actionable messages, cards, taking advantage of Graph. And then we have a virtual hackathon that we actually kicked off just on Tuesday as well, where if you want to just go try a project like we did on Project Focus, build a project, submit it. We have some great prizes, cash prizes, and other types of prizes. So go ahead and jump in with us on extending Office in your specific industry. That's the core of our session. Of course, we always ask for evals, good or bad, to know how we can make this content better for you, and if you're looking for more information. So that's the core of our session today. Appreciate your time. I thank Mark for his demo, and thank everyone for visiting. If you have any questions, we're happy to take them afterwards. Thank you, everyone.